Hi, how's everybody this morning? Aloha. Thank you so much for allowing me to take up a little bit of your time on such a special week. I'm truly honored to be able to be here and talk to all of you. The good part is it's never too late. You don't have to be any certain age to be able to take advantage of it. You don't have to make any sort of income. You don't have to be full-time. You can be part-time. You can even be a substitute. It's very, very flexible. And really, my object today is just to give you a very quick, brief overview of what this is, how it's available, and what it can do for you. So, into the 403B, as everybody, as we know, it's the exact same thing as a 401k. We look to probably the biggest, most important thing of all of this, and that's the pre-tax. Can anybody tell me right away what that would mean, pre-tax?
Before your tax.
Before your taxes, right? Very, very, very basic, okay? We look at a pay stub right here. We have our gross, we have our net, right? If we were to pay bills, if we were to put money in our bank account, if we were to do anything else with it, what side does that come from? The gross or the net, you think? If we were to pay our bills, where does that come from? Net. And I'm not really quizzing you, I'm just getting everybody active a little bit. It comes from the net, right? So, for example, let's use just dollar amounts and say for every time I get a paycheck, I'm going to put in $100 in my bank account, okay? So from our net pay, out of our check would go down $100, correct?
Right.
The difference with a 403B, just like everybody you know that has a 401k, it comes out of the gross first, okay? So let's say $100 comes out of a paycheck, goes into your 403B. What comes out of the net? 100? No, 72. How are you able to put away $100, but you're only actually putting or missing 72 out of your paycheck? Well, we take 100 minus 72. What do we get? What does that number represent? Your tax rate. What this is allowing you to do is it's allowing you to tell the government, basically, that I'm making this much money, but first I'm going to take some for myself, put it aside for myself in retirement. Now you can only tax me on the remaining amount. Okay, so it's basically the only legal way that the government's allowing you to take a lot of the money that you're paying in taxes and keep it for yourself. It's that easy. It doesn't have to be an investment. I know people have heard lots of stories about Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so lost half their life savings in 2008 or 2009. Hopefully nobody in this room has had that happen or knows somebody who had that happen. But it's a very, very, very simple tool. Really, the only point of it is to reduce the amount you pay in taxes and put aside some for yourself.
But then when you retire, you pay taxes.
When you retire, you pay taxes. Now, I usually...
It would be in a different tax bracket.
Very good. I usually follow a strict protocol, but every time at one of these Kupuna seminars, I had the wonderful opportunity to go down to Milo Li'i, which I thought was really, really a cool experience, especially for somebody that looks like me. But that was kind of cool. And all of my friends say, this Halle guy, Milo Li'i, what? But it was really, really a good experience, but it was the only seminar I've ever done where I was not able to stay on track. I got so many questions and I was so sidetracked that I went for like hours and I was all over the place, so maybe we're starting that again, that's fine. What she just talked about was the taxes when you're pulling out. The other way I'd like to show real quick before I talk about that, and I'm going to use large numbers. I know whether it's up or down, I'm just going to use numbers for example purposes. Another way to look at pre-tax, you make $50,000 a year, or $25,000 a year, or $10,000 a year, it doesn't matter. Let's say you're in the 25% tax rate. What are you paying in taxes every year? $12,500, correct? Now, let's say you said I'm going to take $10,000 and put it into my 403B, or $100 and put it in my 403B. It doesn't matter the amount. What are you showing the government the following year that you're making? $40,000. Okay? Even though you're technically making 50 or 5 or 10 or 15, you're only showing the government that you're making this much. So what happens to your tax rate? Well, you've stayed in the same tax rate, but instead of paying $12,500, now you're saying, wait a second, Uncle Sam, I didn't really make that much, I made this much. Tax me on the following amount. Does that make sense? So now you've actually saved $2,500 in taxes that you have been losing every single year and keeping it for yourself. That's no investment, that's no anything. That's just taking money that you lose, keeping it for yourself, putting it aside.
Putting it in your pocket.
Putting it in your pocket, exactly. Now, questions on that from anybody? No, okay. Let's look at sources of retirement income. Now, when I do this talk for a lot of admin, faculty, and staff that's full-time, we always say, number one, what do we have coming in? Our pension. Well, unfortunately for part-time workers, we don't really have a pension, correct? So the first thing we have to look at is what? The infamous Social Security. I'm sure you've heard a lot of ups and downs about Social Security. Is it going to be there? Is it not going to be there? We don't know. Do I think Social Security is going to go completely out? Absolutely not. You're just probably going to get a reduced benefit and get a little bit bump in taxes. Okay? On average, this is going to provide 15 to 25% of our retirement income, right off the bat, okay, in retirement. Now, I know it looks corny, but I always draw this what's called retirement cup. Down here, here's our Social Security. For full-time people, next would be their pension, but for part-time people, and why I specialize in working with part-time workers, because it's more of an emergency. This is what's in the cup upon retirement. That's it. Now, if you have outside investments like IRAs, real estate, bank accounts, whatever else, and probably a lot of you do, or spouses that have pensions, that's going to go in the cup. But for you on an individual level, that's it. That means we have 75% to fill up. Right? We have a lot to fill up. What does this allow you to do? The most efficient, effective way, which we've already talked about, is what's called a 403B. That allows you to fill the rest of this cup. Okay, simply that's it. I don't want to get, real savvy about investments. I know a lot of people nowadays hear the word financial advisor, financial analyst, consultant, Wall Street, and they get the EBGBs and say, well, it's not for me. But I'm sure over this trip, please feel free, most people from Big Island, please feel free to talk to them because I work with most of them and they've really gotten a lot out of this. Yes?
What about that cap with, when you make 65 and you can get the Social Security if you qualify for it? You can only get 14,000. You can't work. If you work, they take money away from you. How does that go?
Well, Social Security, a lot of people right now are claiming it a lot earlier. The 65 age is actually getting pushed to 66 and 67 now. Only take it if you need it. And the reason being is that obviously the longer you wait, the more you're going to get paid. And Social Security is similar almost to life insurance. The government's actually taking facts and figures and seeing, betting on how long you're going to live.
Right.
So if they take it at 70, they have an idea, they have an actual number of what they think you're going to live until, and they're trying to bet the odds. It's just like life insurance. Yeah. You take out life insurance, how long are you going to live? So with the cap, as you're saying, I'm not going to get real into that because that's a whole another story, but the cap for that, if you're taking Social Security, you can still work part-time. You're still allowed to do that. But there's a lot of factors that go around.
You can only make so much money or whatever.
Exactly.
Until a particular time.
Exactly. And then that's it. Right. The two responses I get from everybody is I'm too old or I don't have any money. From every single person, even with all my clients now, they've started out that way. And I say no and no. The great part about the 403B is a lot of clients that I have, or Kupunas, are over 70. When you're over 70, you feel that you absolutely cannot contribute to anything, right? Because usually 70 and a half, you have to start taking RMDs. Absolutely not. I have clients that are in their 80s that are still contributing to something like this. If it's $1 a day, if it's $10 a day, it doesn't matter. It's still a way to be able to pay less in taxes, keep some for yourself. As long as you're still working, you can work to 95, 105 and keep contributing inside of this. Okay, so there's a lot of options. Now, something else that's unusual about part-time workers is you guys, you'll notice on this box, you have federal taxes, state taxes, and you have Social Security. Well, your paycheck is what? There's no Social Security, right? You ever notice that? You don't contribute to Social Security. Anybody find that a little weird? Yeah? No? That's normal?
Or have you noticed?
I found, yeah, most people don't really even notice. And what's very unusual about that is that Hawaii is one of the only states in the United States that instead of, for part-time workers, instead of contributing to Social Security, they do not have you contribute to Social Security, and they have you contribute to something called DC. You've seen that, right? And you've seen an amount, whatever amount it is. Does anybody know what that DC stands for?
Deferred compensation.
Deferred compensation, exactly. You know what deferred compensation is? It's an investment. All of you have an investment. People don't know that. You probably get that letter once a year, or you should be getting that letter that says PTS. You may be able to move these assets if you blah, 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 blah. No matter what, if you're still working, you can never do anything with any of those assets in the plan. You just can't. I get that letter all the time. Even me, Lily, people brought those letters and were showing them. I said, no, you can't move it. But it is truly an investment, except you're automatically enrolled in it. You have no control over it. The 403B is an investment where it's you. It's you decide what you want to contribute, where you want it to go, how you want to access it, and it's more on your time than getting forced into something. Okay? Questions on that? Yes?
I've collected Social Security for a while,
Yeah.
and I was part-time. My Hawaiian Studies is part-time,
Right.
but I also work full-time.
Okay.
Okay. The Social Security that they take out from my full-time job, I notice that when I get Social Security check, every year it gets bigger. Is it because they're taking out from my full-time and that comes back to me?
I would think so. And to be honest with you, I'd have to look at that before I made an immediate answer to that. But I would think that that would be the case. Yes, I don't know exactly. There's so many possibilities when it comes to Social Security or your state pay and all this stuff that I'd love to say absolutely this is the reason, but I can't do that. I put my foot in my mouth.
It changes sometimes, because some years they don't give you anything,
Exactly.
and some years they do.
But none of the years that you're doing this part-time work is contributing to Social Security. You're not putting in Social
Yeah,
Security. It
you're
goes in
not
deferred
putting
comp.
into it.
Now, normally that would be the choice of you. I wouldn't come in here and say you have a 403B. No, you have to sign up for it. You have to know what you're doing. And I'm kind of a stickler about that, but I absolutely make sure that every single person I sit down with knows why they're doing it and what it's doing for them. Every single person I come across that has one, I ask them, why do you have it? I don't know, somebody told me it's a good idea. Well, what does it do for you? I don't know, I just signed up, it's for retirement. That's not what I want. That's the worst case scenario. I want people to know why they have it, what it's doing for you, how to watch it, and that sort of thing. Okay?
And I don't think people realize that in this part-time service, when you do not pay Social Security, that's gonna make you, when you do want to retire, or whatever, and even if you work someplace else,
Right.
this part is going to affect you, because then,
Oh, absolutely.
I've had friends that tell me, oh man, I have to keep on working because I have to go earn my quarters.
Yep.
I said, for what? He said, well, because when I was doing over here, they weren't taking out Social Security, and I was told that I don't have enough quarters.
Exactly.
I said, oh my God.
Yeah, it's scary. It's really, really scary. And everybody's, I've had many appointments where you almost want to say there's not much I can do. You're already been in retirement for 20 years, but there's always something you can do. Now the amount, real quick, I know nobody's going to say it, but this is one part that I think always scares people, the amount and the investment. Now the amount and the investment, I honestly couldn't care if somebody contributes $10 a month, which is a plate lunch a month, or they contribute $1,000 a month. The biggest thing is to contribute, no matter where you work. If you work for the school, if you work for Walmart, if you work for anybody else, always be contributing to your employer-sponsored plan. If it's a 401k, that's great, do it. If it's 403b, that's great, do it. If it's a simple IRA, that's great, do it. Just keep doing, okay? So when it comes to this amount, the minimum contribution is $200 a year. I actually have lots of Kupunas that are putting away what? $200 a year. Why do I have them doing that? Because I know every single year when it comes time to review, what am I going to do? Next year, 210. Next year, 250. Getting them used to it. Getting them used to it. All I'm doing, I have a great job. I force people to save their own money. That's all. That's literally all I do. I don't confuse things with investments. This is the simple matter. For every $200, you're what? You're paying $20, $40 less in taxes. For every $300, we're paying $60, $70 less in taxes. It's just taking the money that you're losing to the government and keeping it for yourself. That's all it is. That's absolutely all it is. So anybody that tells me that they can't afford a plate lunch every 2 weeks, I tell them, no, you absolutely can, okay? Investment-wise, if you want it to be an investment and get all crazy with Wall Street and the market and all that, which I know probably every single person here is absolutely not, don't do it. You do what's called a guaranteed interest option. The guaranteed interest option right now pays 2.25%. It is a floating adjustable rate. Does anybody think that 2 1/4 is a good percentage?
No.
No.
It's 2 1/4 cents on every dollar.
2.25% average annual return. Does anybody in the room think it's a good return?
No.
Okay, what are you guys getting in your checking or savings account right now? Who's getting one?
You're guessing.
If you're getting one, then you're in the best bank account in the entire world.
Really?
Yes.
Absolutely. What's average right now for checking? 0.02. What's average for savings? 0.25. This is at a credit union. This is the best. Credit unions are paying higher than commercial because credit's owned by you guys. Commercial's owned by the big companies. Now does this look like a good percentage? Phenomenal. 10 times better than what you're getting at the bank. That's scary. This, if I would have said this 20 years ago, everybody would have laughed at it because you were getting what, 6, 7, 8% your checking account. Nowadays, you're not even making basically over zero. You're not getting anything. Okay? So when people see this now, they say, oh, actually, that's pretty good. That's not bad at all. Okay? That's as simple as that. It's an account that your money will never go down. You'll keep it. There's no stocks, there's no bonds, there's no investments. Because why am I about this? It's a simple part about reducing the amount you pay in taxes and then filling that cup up for you during retirement. That's as simple as it is. That's all it is. No investment savvy stuff. Okay? Is this insanely boring for everybody? No? Okay. So that's really it. I don't know how much more time I have. There's a lot more about it that I can get into. I'm not going to get into that right now. But what I can say is those cards, if anybody wants, as I said, I have a team on all islands. Please, please, please talk to most of my clients. Again, I work with the majority of the Big Island, some on Maui, some on Kauai. Talk to them. I see some of them coming in now. Worked with them for a good number of years, and have had an absolute blast and been able to help them out a lot. So, and there is a lot more involved. There's a lot more explanation about your benefits and stuff, but I don't want to take up a lot of time because I know this is the first day, and that's it. Any questions before I stop? Yes.
Where were you 10 years ago?
yeah, exactly. But dude, to be honest with you, a lot of the people that do what I do have been doing it. I have guys that I work with that have been doing this for 30 or 40 years. They've never helped part-time workers. It's always been about full-time. And lots of times, I do most of all my appointments in the schools. I spend like probably 70 hours a week in schools, believe it or not. I'm in the schools every day. And people just automatically assume, oh no, he doesn't work with me, I'm only part-time, I'm nothing. I have substitutes that contribute. Okay? So, and that's
David,
it.
I'm Sabra.
Oh, thank you so much.
Aloha kako.
Aloha.
It's the first time I'm meeting this gentleman. He flew all the way to Mokuokeawe to give this presentation to the Kupuna there. And it was on their recommendation that I invited him to come and speak to us, because nobody ever talks to us about what he's just talking to you about.
Yeah,
We don't know anything about it.
it's like the bottom line.
You know, we've had people uahala, they had no idea they had retirement coming to them. We have people who retired, they had no idea they could claim it. Yeah, and they need to claim it when they retire. So all you retirees, and then you can come back. But aloha kako. Maui is on the way. Mokuokeawe, everyone has arrived. They have all left the airport. They are arriving now. Thank you all for coming. And David, mahalo nui.
Oh, thank you so much.
Any now? Any now for him?
Do you know the percentage of our salary you're taking out? The
Yes.
state is at DC. Do you know what the percentage is?
Yeah, that's usually 6%. 6% of the deferred comp. Yeah. And that's something, unfortunately, that DC you cannot control. You have absolutely no control over it. So if people don't want to contribute to it, it doesn't matter.
You still have to.
Oh yeah, you have to. You absolutely, no matter what. You have
So
to.
this would be in addition to that.
Yes, because that is not, it's not a voluntary retirement plan. That is actually your pension. But the problem is everybody has current investments. They're actually invested in the stock market, in bonds. You just don't know it. So when we sit down individually, I actually look at that account for you and go through it and show you how that works.
So the only time you collect that is when you retire?
Yeah, not when you retire. It's actually just when you stop working. So if you work till 80, you wouldn't get it until 80. If you work till 50, you wouldn't. Yeah.
How long has this plan been in effect?
1956. 1956. It's been around.
But it wasn't known to everybody yet.
No, that's as Saber just said. That's kind of why I.
Because I never heard of this, and I was in the Department of Education for
Exactly.
almost 30 years.
Exactly.
And I only had the tax sheltered annuity.
Yeah.
That I had, but
Yeah.
I've never heard of this one.
Yeah. Because nobody tells
Exactly. And Auntie, to answer your questions, if you can take him home, the answer is actually yes. He flew on his own dime to Mokuokeawe, David. He will fly on his own dime to Oahu should you wish to have a presentation there.
You say you have teammates over there.
Yeah, absolutely love to.
Because this is not information that DOE actually ever shares with us. You know, we don't have any training in retirement and financials through DOE, because we're part-time, temporary, forever workers. Some of you, how many of you worked 20 years? How many have you 25?
With the Kupuna program.
With the Kupuna program. You see, and Auntie Arlene and us too. So, David, mahalo nui loa for your time this morning. I appreciate it.